Hi, welcome to Katrina's Creations. Today's tutorial is going to be on the magic loop method. The magic loop method is used for circular knitting, and it can take the place of double pointed needles or the small 9-inch circulars. Especially if you're doing 2 socks at one time, the magic loop is the only method to do that with. So let's get started, and I hope you enjoy this video. Now with magic loop method, it's easiest not to start on the long circular needle. The easiest way to start is either by knitting flat and then transferring to the circular needles, or to begin on double pointed needles and do a couple of rounds. I have, in the case of I'm knitting fingerless mitts, and in this case I started them on double pointed needles until I got just 2 or 3 rows. And then I transferred them to a long circular needle. I think this is a 42-inch cable on this needle. These are size 2.75s, I believe. So how you're going to transfer that, once you have knitted the first couple rows, you're going to split your knitting into 2. I have split the front from the back. So this section here is the front of my work, and this section over here is the back. Now to explain how to put your work onto the magic loop, onto the circular needles that you'll be doing the magic loop with, if you were using 9-inch circulars or the double pointed needles, you're going to fold your work like this, basically just lay it flat like this, and you're going to slide the 2 needles together. You're going to hold them like this, and you're just going to slide the front half of your folded work onto one needle, the other onto the back needle. And that's how you would start. And you want to make sure that wherever you're working yarn, your first stitch is on this back needle to get started. If you are knitting it flat and you want to transfer to the double pointed needles, you would have to fold your work actually over like this, and then slide the needles in the front and the back. Now the only thing with starting it flat and then transferring it is right here at this edge, you would have to go and tack a couple stitches when you finish, because there is going to be a little bit of a gap where you start the circular method. So you would have a little opening right there. So let's get started. You want your yarn coming in from the back needle. You can see it right here. This is a row I just finished on. You have a loop. You have a loop that is created here, and your needles are facing this direction. You can see here's the other end of my needle here. Right now, the long portion of my needle is in front. I want to change that to begin my knitting. So I'm actually going to pull the needle in the back. Make sure you are holding this loop so you don't pull it all the way through. And you're going to pull it so that now the short section is in the front. And you're going to slide your stitches onto the needle itself so that you've got this big loop in the back. Now you can pull the back needle so it's got plenty of flexibility. You can see I can move it quite a bit. Here's my working yarn. I want it to be underneath my needle, not on top. Otherwise, like this, you don't want it like that, because you're going to create a yarn over by accident. So you want it underneath the needle, and then this is now the back, and this is your long section. You're going to knit your first stitch, And this very first stitch, before I do that, let me show this to you. Here is where the section is in between. You can see this, it's kind of ladder, it's called laddering. You can see there's a stretch between any of the stitches. You want to tighten this section up. So whenever you start this first stitch, you want to make sure you put it in there really, pull it really snug. So I'm going to knit my first stitch. There, I've knit it. And now I want to pull it really snug up against that other needle so that it does away with that gap between them. And I'm just going to hold it tight while I do the first couple stitches until it keeps its position. So I have some purl stitches right here, so I'm going to purl 2. This is a ribbing section right here. Purl 2, knit 3, and I'm going to go all the way across on this particular needle. I've now finished with this row, and now the long stretch is facing in the back. This is now the short. So what I'm going to do is just turn my work around. I've turned my work around now, and the short side is in the back. Here is my working yarn. This is the long section. I want to change that. So again, I'm going to hold on to this loop. I usually just wrap my hand around it so it doesn't pull all the way through. And then I start pulling the short, and you can see the long one is now coming to the front like that. Then I can take my hand out of here. I'm going to slide these stitches up the needle. Here's my working yarn. I'm going to begin my first stitch. This is the pattern section. I'm actually coming under the yarn here, just so it doesn't get tangled up, and then doing the stitch. And here's that first section where I don't want to create laddering, so I am pulling it snug like that, and pulling it, drawing it tight. And then I'm going to knit a couple more of those stitches nice and snug. And you can see, looking at it, by doing this, I have closed in. You can see, looking at it, I've closed in that laddering section. It doesn't have a gap in here. So like I said, it's very important that first couple stitches to keep them tight. And I'm going to go all the way across. Okay, I have finished that row, and my long section, you can see, is in the back. The needle in the front is short. Again, I'm going to turn my work. Here's the working yarn. I'm going to put my hand through this loop just to keep it from going too far. I'm going to pull. And slide my stitches onto that needle. And again, the long section is in the back. And there's my working yarn.